All right, good evening. I've got 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get started with tonight's meeting. Planning and Zoning Commission, May 13th, 2025. Thank you all for coming, and we will start with a roll call, please.
Garner.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Dapper.
Here.
Turner.
Here.
Kehoe.
Here.
Morgan.
Here.
Kirkman.
Here.
Selman. Here. Van Auker Jr.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. We'll have a report on council actions and communications. Rodney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Rodney Ashby, Planning and Zoning Director for the record. So first of all, just the report on council actions. The first one is a final plat approval for Lady Bird Landing. This is near the southeast corner of Greenhurst Road and South Royal Meadows Drive. And the Planning and Zoning Commission had recommended approval, and that was approved by City Council. The next one was a final plat approval for Franklin Village, and that was also recommended by Planning and Zoning, and City Council approved that one as well. Next one was a condo plat approval, and that was for Amity Crossing number 2. This was off of Grays Lane, and this was for Mark Bigelow of Amity Crossing, that commercial development on Grays and Amity. And that was approved by City Council. And that one, because it's a condo plat, it's just a little different than normal. You didn't even get to see that one. That just went straight to City Council. The zoning map amendment was the next one, rezoned from RD to BC for JGT Architect, representing Brenda and Oswaldo Rodriguez. And this was the middle of the intersection of 12th Avenue South and East Roosevelt Avenue and 13th Street. I'm not sure that makes sense, but middle of the intersection, it's actually 1215 13th Street South. So not sure why we have that description there. And rezoned to construct and operate a new restaurant. That's probably why. It's that one that had the little alley right next to the alley. And you had recommended approval. City Council actually denied that one. And they were concerned about the impact of traffic coming into that property, then a little drive aisle right next to a couple of residences that were directly next door. And so it was a little bit different approach, but the mayor kind of directed them to do a reconsideration request and try to address the concerns that were expressed by City Council by doing either getting rid of some of the drive aisle and putting a wall or a fence that was a little more a privacy fence in place there between the two land uses, the residential land use and the restaurant. So I don't know that we've seen that yet. Looking to my staff here, you haven't seen? Okay, so we're still working on findings. That'll go back to them, and then reconsideration requests could come after those findings are approved by City Council. The next one was a zoning map amendment, a rezone from RA to RS4. And this is Adura Engineers representing Pradic, and on the northeast corner of East Iowa Avenue and Chicago Street. Planning and Zoning recommended this one. This is for 28 single-family homes, and the council approved it. And then finally was a vacation of existing utility easement that encroaches the building. This is a southeast corner of North Midland Boulevard and North Marketplace, and that vacation of easement was approved by City Council. And then finally, just a note, last year, I think it was in August, or this August, I think, you had approved a conditional use permit for the Warehouse nightclub, and that was where the old True Value hardware store was, right next to that, in that same building complex there. you had approved a conditional use permit for that nightclub. And they went to City Council for a license for liquor license, and that was denied by City Council. And so their plan is to come back with a beer and wine license. So that's just for your information. And that's all I have on City Council report.
Okay. Any questions? It was, must have been a long hearing.
Yeah, it was.
Yep. Any communications?
I do. Commission, I just wanted to recognize Ron Van Acker.
Oh, thank you.
This will be his last meeting with the Planning and Zoning Commission. And we just wanted to recognize him for his good service for our community. A lot of people think, you hear it all the time, hey, you're in the pockets of the developers or whatever, and I just want to just refute that completely and wholly. We recognize that you guys are volunteering your time and are so grateful for the amount of time you put into your reading the staff reports and making decisions based on the good of the community. And I just have felt so strongly that this commission has done such a great job, and you debate it, you think about the details, and Ron, you've been great at leading this team. We just strongly really appreciate the service you've given since December of 2016. That's 8.5 years of his life dedicated to this. That's pretty amazing. So thank you. Christy, you want to say anything?
I'm getting
Real
embarrassed.
enthusiastic, wasn't she?
I'm embarrassed.
Wait till you see what the attorney's bringing in.
That way it's going to be late.
So I have known you and your dad for almost 20 years. I've had the pleasure of working on a number of different projects with you, both for the city and for independent engineers. And it has been a pleasure to work with you. You are extremely fair, and you are a developer, and so you have that inside knowledge, and I feel like that's a really important asset to bring to be able to make the kinds of decisions that you guys have to make. So I really appreciate your service to our community, and I hope that your next community is as lucky as we have been.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Ron.
It's been a good 8.5 years, and I've said it before, Nampa's got the best staff in the valley, and it's the best place to do business. I'm going to miss it. Hopefully I'll be on the other side pitching projects to you people in the future, and it's been great to work with you guys, and just thank you for everything I've learned, and thanks to the community for putting up with me at times and my weird sense of humor. So yeah, this is awesome. It's a cutting board, so I can
I'll put some steak on it, bring it back.
yeah, sure. For like better than Chips Ahoy cookies.
Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully my wife doesn't break it over my head, but so we'll just move on. Thank you. I would entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda. All that's on there is minutes, unless you'd like to discuss the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Kirkman and a second by Kehoe to approve and adopt the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll move right along to public hearings. We have four this evening. I thought I saw four. So just for y'all, I see a lot of familiar faces, but if you're new here, if it's your first meeting, I'll just go through kind of the order of tonight and each application. So we'll start with the applicant. They'll come up and have 7 minutes to present their application, tell us what they're planning to do or would like to do. And after they're done, staff will present the staff report. We received those last week, and everybody's read and prepared that. And after the staff goes, we'll have public testimony. So if you would like to speak and you haven't signed up, you'll get your opportunity. We'll go through the sign-up sheet for each application as they come before us, and you'll have 3 minutes to provide your testimony or ask questions, get clarification on each application. Please state your name and address for the record into the microphone. And after everybody has gone, everyone's had the opportunity to speak, we'll bring the applicant back up to answer your questions and ask them more probably and get to the bottom of everything. We'll make a motion to close the public hearing. We'll deliberate amongst ourselves up here, and we'll render a decision for each item. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and start with the first application on the agenda is annexation and zoning in an RS4 zoning district, potential development agreement and subdivision preliminary plat for Millwood Pines on a 9.99 acre parcel at 7161 Cherry Lane. For Isaac Josephek of Ardura Engineers, representing Schlepia Audrey Carroll, Hayden Homes, for the original concept of a development consisting of 56 single-family detached lots and 6 common lots. Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm not Isaac.
You're not.
My name is Sabrina Minshall. I'm with Hayden Homes. Also wanted to introduce John Carpenter with Ardura. So if you have technical questions, I may need some assistance as we walk through that part. So tonight, I'm just going to cover what our request is about the project, tell you a little bit more about Hayden Homes. We'll go back to details about the project, align plans, and answer any questions you have.
Mr. Chair, could we
Yes.
have her address, please?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. 1020 Hickory Way in Meridian.
Thank you.
I got excited about that I wasn't Isaac and then forgot that part. So just a top overview for you about the project that you've seen in your staff report. It's called Millwood Acres. We're requesting annexation with a zoning to an R4 as well as approval of the preliminary plat. It's 47 single-family lots. That's smaller than the original concept. We reduced those to get some additional larger lots around the outside, so we'll show you those in a minute. The average square footage of the lots is right about 5160, and it aligns with your comprehensive plan of medium-density residential. One of the great things about this project, when I started looking at it from, I call myself a recovering bureaucrat, being in the public sector most of my career, is it's an infill project. Y'all don't get to see a lot of those where it's fully enclaved. And we're really proud to present a concept that be able to use that in a relatively constrained site. So just a couple things about Hayden Homes. I know you've seen us here before. We've actually built 820 homes in Nampa already, started building in Canyon County in 2010. I've only been with Hayden Homes for almost a couple months, and I really appreciate the fact that the business model is very focused. It's very focused on families that are making 100 to 120% of area median income, and those homes that there's a gap where we're not seeing people be able to be homeowners in that category. And we're having to do some challenging and creative things to be able to serve those families. We also really like to emphasize that when Hayden Homes is in communities, we all as employees know this motto backwards and forwards. You know, we exist to give as you go, so together we build a strong community and lead fulfilled lives. And all of our decisions and choices about how we develop and where we develop follow that. You can read more about our charitable contributions and how we do our first story houses, but we've actually done 2 of those already in Nampa and 8 in Canyon County, and more coming. So I want to just do a quick stop here. I know you all just had a workshop, I think in February, about affordable housing, but this is something that we are very passionate about. You can see the disconnect between the annual median household income and then the median home listing prices and how much single-family homes have increased since 2011 to 2021. I actually worked for the city of Nampa up until 2006. We bought our first home for $99,000 off of Grays Lane. And just the price of what has happened in those periods of time, we're all addressing it. And so one of the ways that we like to partner and do that is to help implement the vision by reducing that gap between what we're seeing of the needs for attainable housing. And then sometimes the way we're doing that is through smaller lot sizes, a variety of lot sizes, as well as doing what this project is, which is really an infill where there's already existing city services. All right, let's go into a little more detail on the project itself. This just shows you the project location. A couple of these slides are going to be similar to your staff slides, so I'll just hit them at a high level unless we have questions. Real close to the corner of Cherry Lane and 11th Avenue North. You can tell I've been around a while because I keep calling it 11th Avenue North Extension. Have to remember that we dropped the extension a while ago. So this is kind of a zoomed back map that you can see your comprehensive plan, and you see in the star is where we're located. The reason I wanted to call that out is really everything north of Cherry Lane in this area is showing residential mixed use. So you have some of those uses that's residential or complementary commercial uses. You're getting a much more mix of housing sizes as well as housing densities. Why we really like this site is it is in medium density residential, but it buffers very nicely from the areas that are already existing around it, the planned areas, and then the areas to the north. Just outside these screens are also your specific area plans that you're probably very familiar with that have more of the mixed use in the neighborhood groups. I added this slide. I don't think it was in the staff report, but this is a good example, and I really liked how it fit in, of all the areas that are enclaved within the city in this area. This is such a great opportunity to be able to fill in where there is already existing city services. We can connect to those city services and provide increased density while being able to have then affordable houses for people that want to stay in Nampa or move to Nampa. So on the left here is our current zoning. It's actually still in the county because it is enclaved. You can see the residential professional, which is where you get some residential and you can have some complementary commercial uses. Just to the east, northeast of the site is zoned business commercial, and then you'll see the R6 that is to the south and to our west. So the R4 that we are requesting is a great transition blend for that between the two kind of denser areas that have some of those commercial aspects and then going into slightly less dense residential areas. And we'll show you on the site plan how we've also done that in the site. So speaking of site plan, this is the preliminary plat. What we've done here is color-coded it, and we just kind of picked specific things so you could see the diversity of the lot sizes. Our smaller lots, the 4,000 square foot lots, are on the interior of the units. On the west side is where we're picking up 7,000 to 8,000 square foot lots. And then along the bottom, those lots are extra deep. And if you see those lots to the south, they're extra deep because this site does have a canal that runs through it, an irrigation facility, which we're going to be working with the irrigation district to pipe. But down there in the bottom is actually a easement road for the access. And so we've left those extra deep so that gives lots of buffering to that space, but doesn't take away from people to be able to have that in the lots. So you'll see that there was some discussion in the staff report about whether we needed an exception for the few lots that are over 8,000 square feet, because there's the provision in the code of when they buffer up against larger lots to be able to do that. It doesn't need that exception, and it's a really good transition. I like just to give an example of some of the elevations of the homes we build on these lots, so you can see the skinnier lots, smaller lots, the single-family detached homes that people are able to purchase, and then as you get to larger lots, especially if they're single-level homes, it takes a little bit more footprint on the width. So you'll be able to see those on the far side. So for landscaping, it's 15.8%. We also want to point out that up to the north, where my big red arrow is an amazing oak tree that is very important to the family. So we're going to be preserving that and putting the family crest and some interpretive signage there so we don't lose that tree. And it's a great entry point along Cherry Lane. Well, your staff's going to really talk about essential services, but impact fees will be applicable. We already have services to the city services, so we'll be doing all those things that are in your capital improvement plans and maintenance plans.
Mr. Chair, time.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was actually my last slide, is just the timeline that in early 2027, if all goes with schedule, that's when we would start seeing this. And this is a single phase subdivision with the 47 lots.
Okay. Thank you.
Good timing.
Any questions now? Okay.
At this point?
Sure,
Okay.
we'll have some later.
Okay, thank you.
Damien, staff report.
Damon, do you want your clicker back? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Damian Snodgrass, Associate Planner. So the requested action item for tonight is annexation and zoning for RS4, single-family residential, and a potential development agreement for Millwood Pines. So highlighted is the 47 single-family detached lots and 5 common lots, because this has changed from the original concept plan that they submitted. So I wanted to highlight these throughout the staff report for clarity's sake. The property details. So this property is currently completely enclave. To the north, we have another county enclave. To the south, RS6 single-family residences. To the east, we have RP residential professional, and to the west, we have more RS6, as well as a commercial lot to the northeast. As far as utilities, currently this area is already served by an 8-inch main, sewer main, 12-inch water main, and 8-inch pressurized irrigation. So the requested RS4 zoning, it falls under the medium density designation, so it would fall in line with the comprehensive plan. Here is a map of the comprehensive plan showing the other zoning designations that are nearby. Staff analysis of the preliminary plat. They're asking for 47 residential lots with 5 common lots, and the overall density will be 4.7 units an acre. Within the bulk requirements, the minimum square footage is 4,000 and the maximum is 8,000 for the zoning. The lots proposed are currently between 4,000 and 8,378. The lot widths meet the necessities for the zone, and the gross density meets the 2.51 to 8 dwelling units for the medium density residential designation. And engineering has completed a review, which will be shown a little bit later. To cover the lots that are over the 8,000 square foot maximum that is normally allowable per the RS4 designation, RS4 zone, under Nampa City Code 10-27-6F, any lots that border a larger lot, larger than 8,500 square feet, may be increased up to 20%, which in this case would be 9,600 square feet, making an exception request for these lots unnecessary. Here's just a better example of the lots and the lots that are being touched from the previous subdivision in Sherwood Meadows that are larger than that 8,500. For correspondence, we had quite a few engineering comments regarding the services that are provided and the access layout. A traffic impact study will not be required for this application. Fire district provided comments on the fire access and the water supply. Nampa Police Department provided a commitment fund for 0.16 additional officers and 0.08 additional support staff. Nampa GIS provided a comment about renaming some of the roads to fit within their code. Nampa Code Compliance listed that this property would be under violation if it were annexed into the city due to weeds and other shrubbage. Valley View School District provided a comment regarding growth capacity and restrictions of the current high schools. This will be attached in the staff report. And we did receive a late comment that was regarding traffic concerns on Cherry Lane. So for the staff findings of annexation, these are all private landowners have consented to annexation, that the property will be contiguous through city limits, not only through shoestring connection or a strip of land, that the Nampa Comprehensive Plan includes the area of annexation, and when applicable for annexation, roadways and all portion of highways lying partially or wholly to be annexed with contiguous parcel unless by express agreement. Staff found all of these to be met. For zoning, that the proposed map amendments is or would be in harmony with the city's currently adopted comprehensive plan and comprehensive plan map, that the proposed map amendments is or would provide a proposed use or set of uses that would be at least reasonably compatible with existing and adjoining properties, and that the proposed map amendment is or would be in the best interest of the public and reasonably necessary, and staff found these to be met. Here are the recommended conditions of approval: that the applicant dedicate right-of-way 50 foot from Cherry Lane. Any on-site wells will be abandoned. Domestic irrigation and surface and groundwater shall be transferred, and that utilities shall be constructed per engineering concerns by a 12-inch pressurized irrigation main in Cherry Lane and a 12-inch domestic water main in Cherry Lane. That the applicant shall comply with all city codes, that to remedy the current weed and grass violations and any other that the commission may recommend. Here are your potential motions, and I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions for Damien? All right, seeing none, we will move along to public testimony. Madam Clerk, is there a sign-up sheet?
Mr. Chair, no one has signed up for public testimony.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience this evening that would like to speak for, against, or undecided on this application? Okay. The applicant like to provide any closing comments?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, again, for the record, Sabrina Minshaw with Hayden Homes. I think I would just summarize it for you that this project implements the comprehensive plan and it aligns very closely with it. It also provides a very unique infill project with some site that already has some constraints. Services are available, so this is one of those great projects that we are utilizing the services that are there and filling in the gaps. It's compatible with the transition areas around it. That's part of why we're asking for the R4. That way we can transition to the business commercial and the residential professional to the east. It also provides a very strong focus of our goal on attainable housing and helps provide that and meets those goals that are in the comprehensive plan. The owner has already scheduled the weed abatement for next Monday. As we all know, weeds grow very fast after rain. So we've got that scheduled and going, and we'll be keeping an eye on those. And besides that, just we've read through them all and agree with all the staff conditions that are proposed. And we'll be very proud to be part of the community in this area. And I guess I would just stand for any questions at that point.
Any questions? All right. Well, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Kehoe and a second by Daffer to close the public hearing. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion here carries. Public hearing is closed. Welcome, Mr. Attorney.
Fashionably late.
Yep.
My daughter just performed across the street at the Civic Center.
So sweet.
Yeah, it's really
Great. Didn't have to come far. Public hearing's closed. What is on your mind?
I like it. I think they did a good job. I appreciate them getting rid of a few lots and making those around the outside a little larger to match up with the ones that are already there and transitioning over to the commercial. So I think they've done a great job. So
I especially like the infill projects. I think they're good for everybody concerned, and even the people who live in the area. They've seen it grow, they know it's coming, and most of the time they're not opposed to it. It's good for the city to have the taxation, and I'm definitely in favor of it.
Thank you.
I was prepared to say it was a little too dense. I was prepared to back up the citizens that came to say the same thing, and seeing none, I suppose that I will represent, I guess I represent the citizens, and if they don't have a problem with it, then I like the idea of attainable housing, and I'd support the infill project.
You think it's too dense?
I don't know. It's got RS6 all around it. And I was trying to make sure the RP, it's RP single family, right? Which has a minimum lot size of 6,000. So kind of the buffer thing between an RS6 and an RP, seems like RS6 would fit a little better, but I know it's an infill project, so. I don't know if you want to speak to that, Damien.
Yeah, RP can have single-family home with the 6,000 square foot lot minimum, but it can also have some commercial uses, so you got a mixed lot of what could be on that land.
So that's maybe what I need to understand better. And it goes to RP. It can be any of these RP single family, RP townhomes. It can be any of those.
It can also be multifamily in the RP zone.
Okay. I'm fine with it.
Took you long enough.
I think I agree. I like the buffer. I like how they've laid it out to be able to be conscientious to the neighbors, and also on that south side with the road, how they made those deeper so that those people that get those lots did a little bit more backyard to kind of keep them away from that road. So yeah, very well laid out and good buffering. I think it's great.
Always like infill development.
Right.
So, agree with all of you, but we need a motion. Let's.
All right. I'll move to approve recommend approval. Right? I move that we recommend approval of the annexation and zoning in RS4 zoning district, potential development agreement, and some subdivision preliminary plat for Millwood Pines on a 9.99 acre parcel at 7161 Cherry Lane for Isaac Josephek, representing Shalapia, Audrey, Carroll, and Hayden Holmes. With all conditions list and proposed finding, and to adopt the proposed findings as stated in the staff report.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Morgan and a second. I didn't catch that. Was it
Daffer.
Daffer? Second by Daffer to recommend approval of this annexation and zoning, potential development agreement, and preliminary plat for Millwood Pines. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Move right along to item number 2 on the agenda is a zoning map amendment from RD 2-family duplex residential to RS6 single-family residential zoning district and potential development agreement for a 0.26 acre parcel at 1423 South Elder Street for Celida Herrera for the original concept of a zoning map amendment for building an addition to an existing home. Is the applicant here this evening? All right, come on up. And please just tell us your name and address for the record, and tell us a little bit about your project.
Yeah, my name is Celida Herrera, and my address is 1423 South Elder, Nampa. And I'm just here. This is my first meeting. Never done this. I'm a little nervous. Sorry.
That's okay. We won't yell at you.
So my planning. How do I say? I'm an application for rezoning because I would like to make an addition in my house for a couple extra rooms so I can have for my family when they come and visit. So it's just, I mean, the squares that I my blueprints, it's since they're too big. I mean, for the parcel, so they require me to do a rezoning. So pretty much, it's.
Need a little more room, huh?
What is that?
I said you just need a little more space.
A little bit more space.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions for the applicant?
Ma'am, you're not planning on putting in boarders or renters in this new section of the house?
But in a what?
Boarders, people that pay rent to you to live there.
Oh no. It's just for my family. No.
Well, you can charge your family rent.
No. It's not. That's not the plan. It's just.
Stay as long.
No.
No, we do.
Yeah. So it's just for my family.
Okay. Great.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Staff report. Rodney.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, pretty simple request. You can see the location there off of Elder Street and just to the east of Sunny Ridge and Liberty Park. So again, the current zoning is RD. It includes a smaller portion on the property that's RS6, and the owner wishes to just do that addition and keep it single-family residential. Since the primary zoning district is RD, the property size is limited to 10,000 square feet. So any type of development of the property or expansion would have to meet the new law. So, or the existing law, I should say, for the RD zone. Then the RS6 zone allows 12,000 square feet. So if it was zoned, everything was zoned RS6, then they would have no concerns because their property is 11,506 square feet. So it really is just a way to clean up this property, make sure that it's all zoned one zone, and we don't have that overlap of the RD and RS6 zone, and allow the addition on the property. So history, it's just part of the Kurtz addition. This is an older part of our community. The comprehensive plan land use map shows this as medium density residential. You can see the zoning around it, a little closer view here. So to the south is the RS6, and to the north, and where this property is mainly, is RD. So utilities are available to the site. There's just an aerial view. And then this gives the background for why we need to go through this process. Applicable regulation, as I said, the RD single family only allows up to 10,000 square feet, and the RS6 allows up to 12. Here are the bulk standards for the RS6 zone for setbacks. And then the criteria that must be met, that you must find is met through the facts of this case to approve the rezone. So comments we received from code compliance, I didn't put that on there. They just said there's no concerns. Everything's in compliance right now. And then just standard comments from engineering, and then there are 2 conditions that I've worked into the conditions of approval. And here's the proposed findings. I'm not going to go through all of these. I'll put them up on the screen, but there's quite a few. I just put them all in one lump of facts because multiple facts supported multiple criteria. So I know this was in your staff report, and I'll just show that on the screen, but essentially I'll show you the conclusion that I came up with. Weighing the evidence of the facts presented, the facts support compliance with each of the zoning map amendment criteria outlined in Nampa City Code. The proposed map amendment is in harmony with the city's currently adopted comprehensive plan and the map as supported by the information in the zoning map amendment facts section, including the zoning district being an approved district under the medium density residential future land use designation of the comprehensive plan, and land uses permitted under that zone are identified as needs and compatible to other residential uses in the comprehensive plan text. If you've ever seen a run-on sentence, that's one of them. The proposed map amendment provides for a proposed use that is reasonably compatible with existing adjoining property uses because the proposed use will continue to be the same as all of the neighboring land uses, single-family detached residential. The proposed zoning map amendment is in the interest of the public and reasonably necessary as shown by the fact that the land use will not be changing and the zone and use are supported by the Nampa Comprehensive Plan and the zoning code. And with that, these are the 2 conditions, and then any others you feel are necessary, and then a couple of motions for your consideration. And just a reminder, if you would like, you can just read the dark bolded for approval. And I would stand for questions.
Any questions for Rodney?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have a question. It's kind of a weird one, but as far as improvements along South Elder, is that going to require sidewalks?
So,
because Elder doesn't have any sidewalks whatsoever.
that's an engineering question, and that's based on the specific conditions of that that property.
Okay.
So with the building permit application, we will review the site, and there are allowances in the codes for a deferral of sidewalk improvements.
That's what I was gonna ask you.
That if they meet those, then likely that would happen, rather than just having one odd property with sidewalk adjacent there.
Yeah, yeah, especially at the very end of the street. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Rodney?
How did two different zoning districts end up on one piece of property?
That is a great question, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. That has happened over time. Sometimes it's because of property boundaries being adjusted, and sometimes that's not, in the past, that hasn't gone through our office. Now we have a formal process for property boundary adjustments, but in the past, you could go to the county and just go in and record a property adjustment. So sometimes that's the case. It also could have been just that the zoning was established for a really broad area, and it had a really general legal description that wasn't really specific to corners of properties. And then in that case, you would get that little section of the property being outside of the boundaries. It's happened in multiple ways throughout history, but again, this is an older part of town. It's a lot of years of changes of code and changes of property boundaries. That's what I would say.
I'll buy it.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Last call for questions. All right, we'll move on to public testimony for this item. Madam Clerk, do we have a sign-up sheet?
Mr. Chair, no one has done an advance sign-up for this project.
Okay, is there anybody here in the audience that would like to speak for, against, or undecided on this application? Now is your chance. Okay. Ms. Herrera, anything to add? Or are you good? If you do, you got to come up.
Okay, so you mentioned about the sidewalks, so I know they require me to have a sidewalks, but since, like you said, it's at the end, the area, nobody has sidewalks, and I think I already talked to somebody on the building. What's his name? Sorry, I forgot your name. I don't.
Daniel.
So that's something we will deal with when you do your building permit application, and we can work through the process for a deferral agreement so that those sidewalks don't necessarily need to go in at this time.
In the future, if you guys require to, my neighbors have a sidewalk, I'm very welcome to.
That sounds more fair.
Okay,
To have a sidewalk. Okay.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Garner, second by Miller to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Public hearing is closed.
Mr. Chair, I move to recommend approval of the zoning amendment as shown on the screen for approval.
Second. We have a motion by Commissioner Daffer to recommend approval of this zoning map amendment. All those in favor, and a second by Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries, and thank you for your time this evening. That'll go to City Council. Third item on the agenda this evening is a conditional use permit for an animal shelter in a BC Community Business Zoning District at 3202 12th Avenue Road, a 0.71 acre parcel for Nancy Smith representing Pet Haven, Inc. For the original concept of a pet adoption center, vaccines, and spay-neuter for cats to a larger facility.
Good
Hello.
evening,
Good evening.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Just a little history. Pet Haven
I
has...
need your name and address for the record, please.
Okay. Nancy Smith, I'm the president of Pet Haven, and the current shelter is located at 333 West Orchard in Nampa.
Great. Thank you.
Pet Haven has been in
Who
existence...
we have with you, if he's going to speak, sorry.
My name is Alfred Koenig, and I reside at 11660 Lawrence Drive in Caldwell, and I'm the vice president.
Thank you. All right. Good deal.
Pet Haven has been in existence since 1972. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, and basically we rescue, rehabilitate, and adopt cats and kittens. We've been at our current location since 1996, and we've just outgrown it. We have been in need of a larger facility for several years, and we finally raised enough money to look for a larger building, and this building at 3202 12th Avenue fits our needs.
Nice. Great. So just cats, no dogs.
No dogs.
All right.
Just cats.
Are you buying the building or are you?
We're purchasing it, yes.
Great. I was curious what's going to happen with the daycare, so that's why I was wondering if you were.
My understanding is that the gentleman that owns the building, his wife passed away recently. He is elderly. They've been renting the building to the daycare for the last 17 years, and they decided to sell it. So.
Sorry, we kind of cut you off. Are you finished with your presentation? Or?
I was just going to say that not only do we deal with cats, but we also work with various groups in helping or trying to help eliminate the number or reduce the number of feral cats that are running free in Nampa, which is a problem. And we do that by supporting a independently run spay and neuter clinic they take care of not only our cats, but for the public as well. We have about 5,000 people that come through our doors every year for various reasons, not just to adopt or whatever, but for the spay neuter and for other issues. And last year we adopted out over 660 cats.
Oh.
So.
Mr. Chair, if I could real quick, how many cats do you have currently, and how many will this facility hold? Because I think I got 3 under my shed that I need to.
As of today, we have 63 in our shelter. We have 30 kittens in foster care that will probably not even hardly get to the shelter before they get adopted out. The new facility, it would depend on square footage, but I would say 100 or less.
Plenty of room to grow then, is where.
Pardon?
Plenty of room to grow. Okay.
Yes. We're also wanting, as it is right now, because of the size, the majority of our cats have to stay in kennels, fairly small kennels. With this new building, we hope to have more free roaming rooms where they have a better life.
Where they act like cats.
Where they can act like cats, yes.
Free-range cats.
Yeah, free-range cats. Is there any association with the Idaho Humane Society or the Canyon County Humane Society? Or okay.
We are totally independent, and we are definitely the oldest shelter in this part of the state, if not the whole state, privately owned, I should say. Okay. You have anything you want to add?
I think the only thing I would like to add is the fact that we're doing, to me, a two-step phase on this. For number one, we're taking cats off the street that are feral cats or cats that are just loose roaming around. And the other thing is that we are adopting these cats, and I don't know how many of you have had pets or so, but they're a very important part, and that's probably where our passion comes from, is from taking care of these. And we totally do this voluntarily.
Mr. Chair, I have one other question. It's kind of off the wall. Okay. But any association with the Department of Correction and the program that they have out there with cats, kittens?
Do they have a program with cats?
Yeah.
They have a program with dogs.
No, they got cats out there now.
Oh, no,
Kittens.
I wasn't even aware of it.
He works out there.
I just need to make sure. Okay, thank you.
I have a question for you. Is it easier to adopt out? I was going to get rid of, but that doesn't sound good. Is it easier to adopt a cat out if it's been declawed?
No, and in fact, very few veterinarians now will even agree to declaw. I will say that every animal that comes into our shelter is not adopted out until it is spayed or neutered. so we're not releasing them to anyone to add to the population.
Right. Well, yeah, you're fighting against, no sense of letting them out with it, without doing something, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Great, thank you. We'll call you back up if we have any. All right, staff report, Damien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. The requested action item for the night is a conditional use permit for an animal shelter in the BC Community Business Zoning at 3202 12th Avenue Road. So the property details, the current zoning for the property is Community Business BC. The surrounding zoning to the northeast, we have BC, the DMB supply is right there. Northwest. To the west, we have BC, followed by single-family detached. To the east, we have some county parcels, and to the south, we have BC, which is a community dental office. The applicable regulations for a conditional use permit are listed here, and we will cover them later in the proposed findings. Here are some applicable regulations around defining what an animal shelter is and the land use designation that falls under. Currently, this falls under a conditional use permit, but an animal shelter is a facility used to house or contain stray, homeless, abandoned, or unwanted animals, and that is owned, operated, or maintained by an organization dedicated to animal protection, an established humane society, Animal Welfare Society, Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, or other nonprofit organizations devoted to the welfare, protection, and humane treatment of animals. For correspondence, we received some comments from the building department following the codes that will be required as far as ventilations and change of occupancy. We received a comment from code compliance regarding the weeds that are in the back of the property. And we received one late comment regarding the prior business closing and what was going on with them, but not pertaining to the CUP itself. Here are the proposed conditions of approval, that the applicant will follow all building codes, that the applicant shall keep the property area where the animals are in as sanitary state and shall dispose of any waste, and that the violations of code compliance are remedied. Here are the proposed findings, that the proposed use is supported by the Nampa Comprehensive Plan. Staff has found this to be met. The design, construction, and operation of the project will not adversely impact the intended character and appearance of the general vicinity. Staff has found this to be met. That the proposed use will be served adequately by essential public facilities. Staff found this to be met. That the proposed use will not be detrimental to the economic welfare of the community. Staff has found this to be met. And that the proposed use will not involve any activities, process, material, equipment, or conditions of operation that will be detrimental to any persons, property, or general welfare by reason of excess traffic, noise, smoke, fumes, glares, or odors. And staff has found this to be met. Here are your potential motions, and I'll stand for any questions. And as provided by Rodney, up here in the blue is another way to present your motion, if you so please.
Thank you. Any questions for Damien? All right. Madam Clerk, do we have a sign-up sheet for this item?
Mr. Chair, no one has requested to speak on this item.
Okay, is there anybody here in the audience that would like to speak for, against, or undecided? Come on up. And just remember, state your name and address, please, and 3 minutes to tell us what's on your mind.
Thank you. My name is Tanya Davis. I live at 4019 East Manowar Drive in Nampa. I've been a Nampa resident for about 5 years, resident of the Treasure Valley for more than I want to admit, more than 30 years. So I'm very passionate about TLC for Tots. It is the existing business. It's been in that building for at least 17 years. They provide a quality daycare and educational system for our young children. Without this daycare, there are 47 kids that will not have a place to go while their parents are working. Now, I have animals. I love my animals. They're my little babies. But my children and my grandchildren are what's most important. And moving the daycare out will be costly. It will increase tuition to the point that these families can't afford to send their kids there. It is detrimental to the economic welfare of these families. My granddaughter goes to this school. She has since she was 4 months old. I can't imagine putting her anywhere else. The staff, the director, her family love these kids. And to displace them will be extremely detrimental, not only to these families, but also their employers. So if we want to focus on the economic welfare of our citizens, then I strongly request that you deny this. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, excuse me, I must have fallen asleep or something. What does your comments have to do with this application tonight?
If you approve this application, they'll displace 47 kids from this child care
Why
facility.
will they do that? How will they do that?
Because they'll take the building
They
that
can't-
this facility is in.
The people in the building, the daycare, want to stay there. You're saying that the owner of the building is kicking them out so they get the cat haven in there?
Yes. The property
Selling the
was
building.
listed for sale.
Yeah, I
The
think-
current tenants, I do have one more minute, right? The tenants enlisted the help of a commercial real estate agent. They presented an offer that was neither accepted or responded to. And the value of the property is more than what it would be appraised for. So these tenants have tried to work with the current owner. He is not responding to them. That's out of my,
I understand what
I'm
you're
not
saying now.
involved in that. So
Yeah.
if you value cats over kids, then you'll approve this permit. If you value kids over
Okay,
cats,
we-
you'll
we-
ignore
I hear
it.
what you're saying, ma'am. Let us talk about this.
I think just to be clear, it's not what we value versus the current use. We're a land use or commission that looks at an application brought before us for a conditional use permit, and we have to decide if it warrants an approval or a denial. It's not based on, what we want versus what's there already. The owner has the right to sell the building to anybody the owner wants to sell the building to, and we can't make a decision based on what we like versus what we don't like, or vice versa. So we're looking at the conditional use permit, I think.
The economic welfare of these families
Right, I understand that.
will be greatly impacted.
But that's not what we can base our decision on, is just all I'm
It's
saying.
one of the criteria that you had.
Ma'am,
We'll deliberate at a later time, and
Thank you
I
for
hear
your
your
time.
comments, I appreciate it. Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak for, against, or undecided on this application? Want it?
Christine Sugg. I live at 11490.
Hold on, you're gonna have to start over.
Okay. Christine Sugg, and I live at 11490 West Cumberland River Drive, Nampa. And I heard what you had just stated. I'm glad you're considering holding that aside for a little bit. I also have concerns. I volunteered at the Pet Haven for a year, a part day, a week, and so I'm aware, because I'm a cat lover myself. But my granddaughter attended TLC daycare years ago, and then my grandson is there. We appreciate the quality of services. The one thing I want you to be sure to hear, so I'm going to skip over a lot of this, but I think it is important for you to hear again. They are caring for and teaching 47 children, which supports the ability of 42 families to work. TLC Daycare's specific location provides a needed service access to the population of parents of Murphy, Melba, and Marcy commuting to and through Nampa for employment. Of particular note, not every daycare is willing to jump the hoops of accommodating the programs that support lower income families. 47% of TLC's daycare's families are lower income, and they would be at further disadvantage in attempting to access new, affordable daycare. If one adds the number of jobs that TLC Daycare offers, plus the child care that supports 42 families, and the livelihood of the manager, it supports 55 jobs in our community. Child care availability in Idaho is already at a premium, which means that closing TLC Daycare would impact the lives and likelihood of livelihoods of all these 55 working families. Child-to-adult ratio rules are intended to improve child safety. Nevertheless, as a result of the lack of available childcare in the state of Idaho already, the Idaho legislature has taken the big step of passing a bill to banish the required child-to-adult ratio rules in Idaho daycare centers in their desperate attempt to ease the child care shortage that they, at this time, have no other solution for. If this bill is signed by Governor Otter, it will take effect July 1 and will potentially also move Idaho further down.
Mr. Chair, time.
Okay.
It's your time.
I would like to take just a moment to say,
Ma'am, your time is
I
up.
would,
Time's up. Sorry. I hear your concerns. We have
Okay.
your letter.
okay, it would be nice to talk to the people who are selling, to be ensure that they understand this, what the impact will be to those families. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Mr. Attorney, this is very upsetting to me. Is this legal to be hijacking the meeting like that?
Steve, they're not hijacking.
Commissioner,
They can speak if they
Chairman
like
and
to.
Commissioners, there can be back and forth discussion to clarify points brought up by the citizens to further understand it. There is obviously some disagreement here and strong feelings for and against this. And so you need to keep the demeanor, just as a reminder to the commission, to everyone here, keep those motions in check as best you can to keep the dialogue civil. If a thought is made and time is up, let them finish that thought. From my observation here, I haven't seen anything that's run afoul of any of the guidelines for public testimony, albeit it is a sensitive topic.
It's an entirely different topic, too.
It's been very respectful, though, and I appreciate that. I understand the concerns, too.
Public meeting. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak for, against, or undecided on this application? Come on up. Please.
I'm Marjorie Koenig, and I reside at 11660 Lawrence Drive, Caldwell.
Can you pull that mic down a little bit so we can hear you? Thank you.
As a spouse of a board member of Pet Haven, I have watched for several years as they have diligently looked for a place where they could move that would provide adequate space, not only space for the animals, but space for parking and a good access for the building. This is the perfect place. And Pet Haven has worked with D&B in the past. I think this could be a really good project for both D&B and Pet Haven and for all of the people who are involved in this.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak for, against, or undecided on this application? Come on up, please.
Hello, my name is Kayla Davis. I reside at 4019 East Manowar Drive, Nampa.
I do have a few questions for the Pet Haven. I would like to know how they plan on working with DMB for the gates that DMB uses. The daycare currently works with DMB with our hours to make sure that the gates are open and closed for DMB due to all of their equipment, all of their stocking needs that are outside of their store to keep them safe with the hours that they currently work. That's not possible for DMB. Those are outside the hours that they work. I also just want to put forth, my daughter has been going there since she was 4 months old. And taking away a daycare from a single mom in a place that it's extremely hard to find daycare would be a very poor decision for the city of Nampa. That's all.
Thank you. Anybody else here that would like to speak for, against, or undecided on this application? Come on up. Can I come back up? No, you can't. You're the applicant. Stay put. You'll have a chance to answer questions. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm Bobby Bean. I'm at 2112 Lexi's Lane, apartment 101 in Nampa. I just want to speak for the daycare too. My daughter's been going there. Well, I have two now, but one has been there for over 4 years. We have recently actually left the daycare and come back, and it is really hard to find childcare by displacing this daycare. Even if they can find another building, it's going to skyrocket tuition, which they just lowered to help families like myself be able to afford childcare. My fiance and I both work. He works 2 jobs just to be able to afford daycare the way it is, especially with the recent change to the ICCP income limits, which are crazy. But so like she said, by displacing the daycare and approving the Pet Haven to go in there, you're displacing families like myself. I've been looking already at other daycares. There's wait lists everywhere. There's one that is available, but it's going to be a $400 and something a week for my 2 girls to go there, which I can't afford. So we're trying to find the balance because we can't afford not to work. So please, I mean, I get Pet Haven, it's a great thing. There's lots of buildings out there. You're displacing one that's been there for however long. So just keep that in mind, please. Like she said, she's a single mom. There's 2 incomes in my house, and we can barely afford it as it is. So trying to find a new one is really, really difficult. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Coming up.
Good evening. My name is Lola Smith. I reside at 5670 3rd Avenue, South Nampa. I just want to know what is going to happen if we don't buy the building and somebody else does.
Who's we?
Pet Haven.
Oh, okay.
I am Pet Haven.
Okay. Okay.
I'm the secretary and have been for several years. I've been with the organization since 2017. But just because you don't approve of this and we don't buy the building because of it, doesn't mean that the owner won't sell to somebody else. So they're going to be fighting the same thing if they're displaced. My question is, why hasn't the owner of the building contacted them and responded to their request to buy the building? Thank you.
Question. Thank you. Anybody else who would like to speak? Now is your chance. All right, would the applicant come back up?
Now you get to come back up.
Now you get to come back up. You have 5 minutes to answer any questions. I think the one question that I had from the testimony was the gates at DMB and how that's going to work to share the access to
Okay. What we've been told is that there is an agreement between D&B and the daycare that would be carried forward to us, that we would have a key and would have access in and out as it's currently working with the daycare.
Okay. All right, and then, I guess, do you have any other closing thoughts?
Kind of
Rebuttal?
repeating what she said, my only comment was the building came up for sale. We were contacted by the realtor we're working with, said, here's a possibility. We had nothing to do with putting the daycare out of business or anything else. We were just told that this was a commercial property that was for sale, and were we interested in it? And we looked at it and decided we were and moved forward. So, you know, it's not that we're trying to run a daycare out of business, but if we don't move there, the business is still for sale, or the property, and will be sold to somebody. So.
Okay.
I think that pretty much sums it up. I don't know that I have.
Thank you. Any questions?
I want to know why they didn't bring kittens in here for us.
Pardon?
I want a kitten.
Well, we'll have several of them very soon. Like I said, we have 30 that are in foster care right now, and so when they hit, they're going to hit. So, okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. I entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Did you guys rehearse this?
We have a motion by Commissioner Daffer and a second by Garner to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Public is closed.
So I'm in real estate, so I can help you out with the response to the offer. Sellers do not have to respond to all offers. They can pick and choose whichever offer they want, and it doesn't always end up being the best offer. This property is for sale, and whether these people buy it or somebody else buys it, I can almost guarantee you that business is going to have to move. We can't base it on that because we can't control who the seller sells to. So we can only go off of what can be used at that property, what can go there, and this can fit there with a conditional use permit. So whether we deny it or not is not going to have probably much bearing on that business being able to stay there or not. I appreciate it. I understand child care. Thank goodness all my kids are grown. But we have watched grandkids on and off for a while because of the cost of daycare. I can totally sympathize with that. But that cannot have any bearing on our decision on the CUP because it has nothing to do with what they're asking to do. And this place is for sale and it's going to be bought by somebody.
Just to tack onto that, that good explanation, like if it was a business that was something else, they wouldn't even have to come before us, right? The only reason it's even here tonight is because it's something that happens to need a CUP. If they're, if they were selling it to a clothing shop, it would never even come to a public hearing. But I just
public hearing closed.
Yeah.
And I think all of us, our hearts are with the daycare.
We are, but
and if it would do any good, and if we had legal standing to do so, I would support the daycare. But it's just not what's in front of us.
If we do go through with the denial because a daycare is losing its spot, what's going to happen is that landlord's going to evict them and then come do it again. Like, we're not going to stop it from happening just because we deny this.
Or the building be sold to somebody else. I mean, I empathize as well. My kids were in daycare when we were both, my wife and I were both working our butts off, and it's hard to make ends meet and have all those expenses. But we have to go by the conclusions of law that are before us on if the conditional use permit is warranted or not. In my opinion, it meets all those 5 criteria. So I don't think, I think it's a good use for the building and would fit with the neighbors and provides an essential service to the community. So I'm in favor.
And Mr. Chair, just for the record, I love kids a lot more than I love cats. And I do understand the need for daycare, but it comes, whether or not, yeah, I mean, they're going to sell the building anyways, and it would probably be worse at that point to have to evict all of the current tenant out of that building on the for sale. But anyways, it's just not a good situation. But I like kids a lot more than I like cats. Sorry, Pet Haven. But I do have a question on the public hearing format of this, and I was going to ask the attorney on this. Recently, the legislature passed a statute regarding school board hearings where anybody can come up and talk about anything they want, whether it's on the agenda or not on the agenda. Is that, I don't think there's a statute that's been passed for outside of those types of meetings, but is that kind of how a public meeting should be run that way, is that we give the opportunity for anyone who wants to speak to speak, or do we need to limit it to, I would imagine we limit it to what's on the agenda, but I just don't know if there's any legal parameters around that.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I'd be happy to address that point. Something we adopt at the city council level, we have an open public forum where people can come and essentially air their thoughts, grievances, and feelings about whatever. And what the law says is that we can control how long they speak. Those are different because there's not an action before you. There's not a property right or interest at stake. It's just expressing feelings. That's agendized for a different portion of the meeting. Here tonight, the testimony that you hear needs to be germane and relevant to the application. There's some latitude to that, right? To some, a point may be relevant, to another it may be irrelevant. But if it's within those general confines, that's appropriate. If you ever did want to consider additional open forum, a format that we follow at the city is probably the best example to follow. But yeah, for an application that comes up, the testimony needs to be germane and relevant to that topic.
And I appreciate that all the testimony that was provided was very respectful, and it wasn't out of line, I don't think, at all, so.
It was regarding the same building. I think that's close enough.
Relevant enough.
It's relevant.
General parameters.
It's relevant.
Yeah, nothing will stop a public testimony from maybe misconstruing the law as it's applied.
Sure.
That's fine. That's why I'm here to help guide. If the decision goes off that course, we bring it back on. But for the most part, if it's within those sideboards, let the deliberation and testimony continue until, legal counsel guides and directs otherwise.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Chair, if there's no other comment, I'll move to approve the project as stated on the screen for approval with all recommended conditions of approval.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Kirkman and a second by Kehoe to approve the conditional use permit for this application. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. That conditional use permit is approved, and the CUP will become effective 15 calendar days from the date the written decision and reason statement is provided to the applicant unless an appeal has been filed with the Planning and Zoning Department with the appropriate fee. No action should be taken on the CUP until the appeal period has concluded, and the applicant must confirm with the Planning and Zoning staff there have been no appeals. All right? Thank you for coming out this evening. We still have one more item on the agenda.
I forgot Christie was.
Not going to get away from here without having text amendments on the last meeting. Yep.
We could table this till our next meeting.
No.
Let you out of
That's
here
okay.
that easy.
Highlight.
What if we table it till like November?
Yeah.
I'm already scheduled for city council. You can't do that.
How people pay.
We don't want to keep Ron here till 10 on his last night.
This won't
Do we
take
make a motion now, or do we have to wait?
Got to present it, probably got to.
We'll wait a little bit.
If you listen fast,
Okay.
we'll get through here
Speak
really
really
fast.
Nobody's ever listened faster than I am going to right now.
Like on 78.
If you've read your staff report, I won't have to say anything.
What we had to do, so.
YouTube, you like turn up the speed.
When I find those three in the
We good?
Yeah.
We good?
Go for it, you're in charge.
Okay. Well, just waiting for y'all to
Ask her.
stop talking.
Is there a way to turn the speed up? Christie speaking.
All right. Action item number 4 is Nampa City Ordinance text amendments for Title II, Chapter 18. Nampa Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, Title 9, Chapter 6, Erosion and Sediment Control Grading. Title 10, Chapter 1, General Provisions, Chapter 2, Enforcement. Chapter 3, Establishment of Districts and Provisions for Nonconforming Uses. Chapter 8, RS Single Family Residential Zone. Chapter 10, RD2 Family Residential Zone, Chapter 15, Downtown Subdistricts, Chapter 19, IP Industrial Park Zone, Chapter 19, IL Light Industrial Zone, Chapter 20, IH Heavy Industrial Zone, Chapter 22, Off-Street Parking and Loading, Chapter 23, Signs, Chapter 25, Conditional Use Permits, Chapter 26, Planned Unit Developments and Master Plan Communities, Chapter 27, Subdivisions, and Chapter 33, Landscaping and Corridor Beautification. Christy Watkins.
All right. Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. I'm Christy Watkins, Principal Planner for the City of Nampa. Just a slight correction there. That should be Chapter 18 for IP Zone. That was my typo.
Oh, great. Now he has to do it all over.
Now we have to read it all over again.
Bring it back to us next month.
So the action before you this evening is a recommendation of approval for a few code changes in City Code. I will try to get through this fairly quickly, but stop me at any point if you have any questions.
Don't you dare.
So,
Didn't mean to say that.
Title II, Chapter 18 is the Nampa Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee that was established in 2011. It has served a very good purpose. Public Works has since established the Transportation Advisory Group, and it does have room for an advocate or a representative of the bicycle and pedestrian community. And so rather than having two separate bodies kind of talking about the same subjects, we wanted to combine them together. And with the Transportation Advisory Group, they have some people with more authority than just volunteers. And so in that aspect, they can have those really relevant conversations and make some good decisions at that time. So that whole chapter is going away, or that whole section of that chapter is going away. Chapter 9, or Title 9, Chapter 6. This is erosion control, really not relevant for you because it is not planning and zoning code necessarily, but I thought you should still know about it. These changes were requested by Greg Goodman, who works in environmental compliance. They clarify the area of land to be disturbed by construction that will require a permit and what standards need to be followed at that time. So that's pretty basic. Okay, then we're into Title 10, which is zoning code. For Chapter 1, this is for definitions. There were some conflicting definitions for commercial kennels and non-commercial kennels. They were listed in two places, in animals and bees and in land uses. The definitions were removed from land uses, and they were just referenced now under animals. This fits with the kennel license language from the police department and the animal codes in Chapter 21, Title 10. In regards to how many animals can be kept and what age of animal can be kept before it is considered to be an additional animal. So we do allow them to keep puppies and kittens and things like that, small animals, up to the age of 6 months before they're required to get a conditional use permit or a kennel license from you all. So we wanted to make sure that that was all reading the same language. Okay, so this one.
Christy, I'm sorry, you paused for a question, so I'm going to ask a question just because my, but when it talks about the police guard CNI dogs, does that also include, help me out with the.
Emotional.
Thank you. Those types of service animals that are being trained?
Yeah, so this is just defining what a commercial kennel is. And so we wanted to make sure that we were covering all types of animals, and that does include those service animals that are being trained, yes.
When it's specific like that in an ordinance, though, sometimes you leave out what you may have intended to put in there when you start listing them out like that.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you. Okay, so we have recently had some questions from various companies that have wanted to come in to do data centers, and we did not have a definition in our code for a data center, so we thought we would split out call center versus data center so that we would be able to specifically talk to those folks that want to come into our community. With that, we move into we're still in Chapter 1. The term cottage, I was just talking to Steve about this earlier. Cottage developments can be handled through a planned unit development. just with basic lot sizes and setbacks, and so they don't necessarily need to be referenced as a cottage. And in our code, we were saying cottage cluster. Those are actually two very different things. And so we're taking all of the references to cottage out in Chapter 1, Chapter 3, Chapter 26, and Chapter 27. That's the only time I will mention that. I'm not going to go through Chapter 26 and Chapter 27. Okay, so for this one, this is Chapter 2. With our notifications, we've been trying to kind of refine how we do that, because we get a lot of questions from people as far as like, well, why was it so long before I got my notice in the mail, or I never saw it, or some of those things. And so we want to make sure that they had specific references to state code that they could refer back to say, we are following what we have been directed to do. We are required to publish in the newspaper, and we are required to mail out notices. In the publication one, variances and vacation applications have very specific procedures found in various state codes. And under mailing notices, conditional use permits also have a very specific state code that talks about building height. And I wanted to make sure that that information got into our code, because up until recently, I actually didn't know it existed. We haven't ever had this problem because we don't have any buildings that are over 100 feet tall. But if we ever did get one, I want to make sure that it's listed in code so we don't miss that portion. Let's see, also under property notifications. So as you may remember, in our last code changes, we were talking about having the applicants post their own properties. We have not started that process yet, but it is in code. We wanted to refine it down just a little bit more. So under certain circumstances, city staff will still post notifications on a property so that the owner doesn't have to be concerned with it or have the potential added expenses or the monitoring of that posting. So if somebody's coming in for a dog, or someone's coming in for a daycare or something like that, staff will continue to post the property for them. The exception defines when that happens on the owner's behalf, and then we will move forward August 1st with having the applicants post notifications on their own properties. So this image here actually breaks down different ways that a property can be configured and how those properties should be posted. So in the last set of changes, like I said, we adopted the requirement for applicants to post their own property. We've dialed this in a little bit further, and this section describes where certain size signs should be located so it can be easily seen from the right-of-way and from neighboring properties. We will require a 4x4 sign posted in strategic locations for visibility, and will also allow an 11x17 sized sign under certain circumstances to help the applicant and the city to save some money. These are the details for a 4x4 sign. So they will have to make sure that those signs comply with this. These are the details for the 11x17 sign. And that's the postings. Any questions about, yeah.
Currently, they have these signs that are like on a 4x8 foot sheet of plywood. Are those still going to be available, or just these sizes?
Commissioner Kehoe, we're doing the 4x4 pieces of plywood right now. And that what will be continue to be expected from applicants, but now they're going to have to pay to have it done.
Oh.
It won't be available through us.
Finally.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Other jurisdictions do it that way. We are one of the last ones that still does it for the applicants.
You
So
ought to
we're
get
trying
fined for being last.
I'm sorry?
You ought to be fined for being last.
Probably. I already took Ron's cutting board out of his pay. Okay. So for this one, this is just kind of a cleanup. So annexations used to be categorized through state code as a category A, category B, or a category C type of an annexation. A couple years ago, they changed that, and they no longer categorize them A, B, or C. So we want to make sure that our code was reading the same. If you see the word reserved in there, I was telling Steve this earlier, It's because I got lazy, and I don't want to have to renumber every single paragraph after
That's
that
the way
one,
to
just
go.
because I took it out. So if you see reserved, that's why.
That's a smart way to do that, actually.
Yeah, thank you.
Because you know you're going to use it at some point.
At some point, I'm going to fill it back in. Infill.
That is exactly right.
So then, under development agreements, we are just simplifying the criteria for modifying a development agreement and to remove conflicts. The previous 5 criteria for modifying or changing a development agreement seemed difficult. It kind of would have caused almost every single development agreement to come back through the process again, when maybe that wasn't actually necessary. So then we just decided to simplify it and bullet point it. So the things that will now require a modification is exceeding the number of buildable lots, decreasing the amount of approved open space, revision of the approved open space concepts, revision of the approved set of building elevations, and items determined to be substantial changes according to the planning and zoning director or his or her designees. In Chapter 3, Chart of Uses, we only have 2 changes here. We added sports centers to indoor entertainment so that staff could more easily define what those uses could be and where they could be located. And then we also added data centers to the areas where they could be allowed, which is only in the IL and IH zones. For Chapter 10, we wanted to make sure that we got this into the chart. There's always some question about how we determine what the setbacks are for a townhome. So we said,
I have a question on data center, sorry.
oh, okay.
Is there any discussion about including it in like a commercial district or like the GB district?
Chairman, that was not what the direction was given to me when we wrote this.
Curious.
Do you want to talk about
They can
that?
fit a lot of different types of buildings, you know, like retrofitting an office building may be easier to do than building a brand new big scale, large scale data center.
Mr. Chair, the direction we've received from our elected officials is that they're concerned about data centers and the amount of utilities they require. And so the direction we've been given is to try to limit it a little bit, and that's how it's done. Yeah.
Got it.
So they are only allowed with the conditional use permit, right?
Mhm. Yes, that is correct. That would come before you.
Sorry, but just taking up valuable industrial space instead of maybe an abandoned Kmart. I mean, not a Kmart, but abandoned.
That was very specific.
That just slipped out.
That's the point. I mean, they could always rezone the property if they wanted to try, but I don't know. It's just, I get it.
Was call centers already on here?
Yes. Yeah, Commissioner Morgan, that's already listed as one of the uses, so I didn't have to add that one. Okay, so this is just clarifying setbacks for townhouses. So interior units, obviously, because they're attached on both sides, have a 0-foot setback. My staff asked me to add that in.
0 feet.
0 feet. Okay.
Whoa.
Downtown subdistricts, it has its own section for signage. As we talked about in the workshop in April, our sign code and our whole code in general is kind of a shotgun approach, which means that anybody who's looking for sign information doesn't just have to look in the sign code, but they also have to look in other portions of the code. And it's really confusing. And so we compared the list that was in the downtown subdistricts to our sign code, and they're very, very similar. And as we talked about again in April, we are going to be reorganizing our sign code. So this is just the beginning steps of trying to consolidate all of that into an easier format. So this is going away, and it is handled in Chapter 23 in the use charts. In Chapters 18, 19, and 20, these are all the industrial zones. We are taking out the special hazardous uses section because building code and fire code already handle all of this. So there really isn't any reason for us to get involved in that decision if fire code's already addressing it with fire sprinklers and other
The
things.
experts handle it.
Huh?
The experts handle
Let
it.
the experts handle it, exactly.
And it causes confusion sometimes.
Yes. In chapter 22, in parking, we've got two different types of permits. One is a site improvement permit through the planning department that is for landscaping only. And then we also have a civil site permit that is through the building department that is for all other types of improvements, landscaping, drainage, utilities, hardscape improvements. And then what we did is we separated them out, redefined them, and then walked through the processes and definitions for how each one of those would be applied for. In chapter 23, we restated this paragraph at the top because it was a bit confusing, so we tried to clarify the need to use the charts that outline the types and sizes and locations of signs that are allowed. If it is not in the chart, it is not allowed. And to also add language about specific area plan guidance, which we didn't have up to this point. The addition to the charts in the commercial and industrial zones is for the new standards for the signs along I-84. That we discussed at the workshop in April. These standards were recommended by the subcommittee that was made up from members of City Council and Planning and Zoning, and it allows for an increased height along I-84 based on the elevation of the center line of the freeway. These would appear then to keep them more in proportion to the grade of their property, but still be able to be seen from long distances away. This language will help us to not have so many sign variances that go before City Council for their approval. And conditional use permits. You guys have heard the 5 criteria for conditional use permits probably until you're ready to bang your head against the wall. So we now have 3. And we tried to clarify those a little bit better. What we were running into was trying to make those 5 criteria meet every possible conditional use permit scenario that we came up with. Dogs, daycares, duplexes, things that maybe aren't really relative to one another. We were trying to fit them all into the same box. So we made the 3 criteria that we landed on much more broad, and took out the conflicts between the various different criteria. So hopefully that will be a little bit easier for us to be able to apply it to different applications.
But Christy, like on that second one there.
Sorry. Went away totally. Okay, sorry.
On that second one, 25-4A.2, you have or the project. So that's still basically 2 of them. It's not and, it has to meet both of those. It can either meet the first part of that or it can meet the second part of that.
So they kind of say the same thing, right? The design and construction, operation, and maintenance of the property and project will not adversely impact the intended character and appearance of the general vicinity, or the project will not be detrimental to any person's property or general welfare due to reasons of, so you can put a lot into that, right? So if it's something that's being designed, a dog isn't being designed, but it might be detrimental to the neighbor. So we put it under the same category because you can kind of apply it to
Generally speaking, the first part of that statement, though, has to deal with property, the physical structure. I mean, that's how I looked at it. And then that second part of it's always been, you know, are the kids going to be able to cross the street without getting run over 4 times? You know, so that is always, in my opinion, dealt with the people. How does it impact the people? So will those 2 statements in that one have to be met on a conditional use?
No, that's why it says or, so that we can
Mr.
apply
Chair,
it.
if I may, this is fun stuff, right?
No.
By fun, it's
You
brain
may not.
damage, and don't advise everybody to get into it, but there may be some wisdom here, just out of an abundance of caution, it's the principle or the power of a comma can change and flip an entire thing on its head. It may make sense after the word general vicinity to insert a comma. Want to break up the terms a little more clearly. and make sure that there isn't any confusion of, is it the general vicinity or the project? That might help just from if someone's really putting a magnifying glass to it. And I think the question was raised here, can you meet, so as I read it right now, let's say there's an application before us. Let's say that the first half of the sentence, that the operation, maintenance of the property, you find that it doesn't adversely impact the intended character or appearance of the general vicinity. That's fine. However, the project is going to have excessive odor. That's, let's say it's a mink factory or something like that. It's going to have a lot of odor. You would still be able to deny that because of the excessive odor. Notwithstanding the first half, it was okay with the general vicinity. So you would still be allowed to deny it based off if it doesn't meet one part or the other. It might be cleaner to break it up into two where they are measuring two different things. As drafted, though, I think you'd be allowed to deny it based off not meeting the first half or the second half. I think I would probably recommend breaking it into a second one. I know it doesn't go with the theme of simplifying the quantity from 5 to 3, but it may help just avoid some confusion for what it's worth.
That's fine. You're more than welcome to make that recommendation if you would like to.
Mr. Chair, the only concern that I have there is that there are some projects where only the first half would apply and not the second half. So if you add the second half that doesn't apply to the project, it's hard for us to make facts and get a conclusion of law that fits that criteria. And so we maybe, I'm just thinking out loud here, but maybe we have a criteria that's specific to a certain type of conditional use permit, one or the other here. So maybe this one applies, the first half of this sentence applies to some types of conditional use permits, and the second applies to another type of conditional use permit.
I think you'd still be running into, at some point, I think you'll still be running into some of those projects that you don't know, that it doesn't fit. I like that these are combined here. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't, we have to meet the whole thing, but it is that or, which gives us some latitude because you may have a project that comes and doesn't meet the first part of this, but meets the second part, or doesn't meet the second part but meets the first part.
Correct. Yeah, that's the point I wanted to make, is that the or helps us distinguish between different types of projects.
If I may, speaking from my prior days as a land use attorney, presented before bodies like you, I've had some commissions that would glean on one word that they felt like they couldn't the project didn't fit. Everything else was fine, but it was one word. And that may be a risk that applicants might have here, is they may meet the first half but not the second. And I think there's an argument both ways, but one of those would be, well, if you don't meet all of that condition, is it the poison pill, right? Does it make it so you don't meet, you can't get a conditional use permit? I think you could, depending on the legal counsel, it may change a little bit just because it could go either way here. That's probably why I lean towards breaking it up, only because if there is a criteria that really isn't relevant to a project, you don't need to deny it saying, well, that didn't apply, so we can't find an affirmative basis that it meets it. If it's irrelevant or not applicable, that's not a reason to deny. It has to negatively and directly not meet the criteria.
That makes sense. Can you add the phrase "if applicable" in something like this?
I was thinking that too, that last sentence before the list, the conditional use permit criteria are as follows and as relevant to the application. Something like that may allow you to say, okay, pick the ones that are relevant if there is scenarios, and I would trust Rodney's take on this. He's done this a long time. If you run into those log jams, that could help you, give you some flexibility. Yeah.
Maybe take out all in that first, the first conforms to all of the following conditions.
Yeah, you could make that align, all as relevant.
Yeah.
Or all the applicable.
Yeah. And then it becomes a,
Wordsmith it, get back to us.
Yeah.
and then anytime you give a little bit of flexibility, then it's now subject to interpretation. You might have some commission think, I think it is relevant, and others think, I do not think it's relevant. And so there might be a tug of war, potentially.
So
I haven't seen it that much. I've usually seen it where they glom onto one word, isn't really relevant, but they can't find a basis for it to deny the project, and they end up denying the project.
So what I heard was break it into 4 criteria, take that sentence out, and again, give it its own piece, and then say a conditional use permit may be granted only if the proposed application, proposed project meets the following conditional use criteria as is relevant to that application or as is applicable.
Maybe we could do, and again, this is, can be a dangerous exercise, drafting on the fly, but we can refine this a little more as needed. Yeah.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, if you guys want to make a recommendation
Can I make
that goes
maybe-
in that vein, and we work with Preston to get it wordsmithed, we can take it on to city council with your recommendation. If not, we can pull this piece out. We don't have to, you can recommend not approving it with this piece, and we can bring this back at a later date.
I think if you got with the attorney and wordsmith it to where, it would be good as far as the attorney's view. I don't know. I think you guys can get it figured out before it goes before the city council. Then you don't have to bring it back to us.
In the end, I trust you guys.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you.
Well, I think the intent is understood, though. So working with the attorney is.
You're comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Since no one has anywhere to go tonight, can I make one more suggestion?
Not me,
Well, but I like the spirit of what you're doing, so I want to try to keep it as close to what you have now, and I wonder if just, since it's a not and an or, I think that's what's throwing us off. So if we just do general vicinity, comma, nor will the project be detrimental to blah, blah, blah.
Then does that mean they have to meet all of them again?
Yeah,
Are we
then you
back
would be
to
What do you mean?
You'd have to meet the whole sentence.
nor?
You do have to meet the whole sentence. We don't.
The or.
With or.
With or, it's one or the other, and you can split it out
It could
depending on what the
it could
project
work.
is.
It could meet all the criteria, but it could meet part of it and not the other.
So this criteria has 2 bad things it could be, and you can't have either one of them. If you have either one of them, then it's fails.
If you have nor, it would have to.
Includes both.
It would have to.
Okay.
So if we say if applicable and split them out into their own criteria, then we can determine when we
I
have
think
an
that's going
application
in the
that's-
opposite direction of what you're trying to do. That's why I was trying to help you not do that. but-
Because it was going from 5 to 4 instead of 5 to 3, so you're still headed in the right direction.
No, the point of
We tried.
the point of this is there's 2 things here. Some apply to some projects, some apply to both, some, right? And so if we get it all in one, you don't have to say,
If you put nor and you went general vicinity, nor the project will not be detrimental, they would have to meet all of those. Or if you go or.
this is a negative though, I guess is what it is.
I'm having PTSD because we used to spend hours at policy review over where to place a comma and a period.
So I got a suggestion. Just ask AI to do it for you. AI, write this so we won't get sued.
It depends.
Yes, exactly right. It depends.
When you make the motion, you'll need to say, work
No.
with Preston on,
Can we just say, as we discussed in the discussion?
about,
Because
yeah.
you made the notes, right? And
Mhm.
Staff will work with the attorney,
Yeah,
wordsmith.
I think as long as we reference the conversation in the notes that Christie made.
Yep.
Be massaged with the attorneys as needed.
As needed.
I'll make one proposal, and if we like the language, great. If not, let's go that route. To your point, Commissioner, about the nor, it is 2 negatives, right? It's saying you will be approved if you can, you have to prove a negative for a conditional use permit. You have to prove that you're not adversely impacting the intended character and appearance of the general vicinity. You also have to prove another negative. You are not detrimental to any person's property or general welfare by reason, et cetera, excessive noise, odor. So if you did do the nor, you would say appearance of the general vicinity, nor will the project be detrimental, et cetera. They still have to prove both negatives with inserting the nor. I guess the question is, Rodney, does that help address the scenario you presented?
I think so. I think we have the intention of the commission here. I think they're correct in saying that we could work this out. And I think the point here is that we've got two different types of conditional use permits.
Yeah.
And we don't want to have one type be beholden to have facts that have to be proved that don't apply to them, right?
Yes.
And so if it's a negative, I can see that working, because then we just have to say that we don't have any facts that show that this applies to this project. So I think the nor could work here, because then both of those, if there's no facts that support it or that show that they apply, then we're good to go. We're good to approve the conditional use permit. But I think we have a good direction from the commission, that you're comfortable with that idea. And I feel comfortable we could come up with something with our attorney's help to bring back and to city council.
Yep, good. The second piece there is about conditional use permits required for placement of signage. This is also addressed in Chapter 23, our sign code. And to be fair, we didn't even know this code existed. This previous staff put this code in place, and probably some of you were here when it was adopted. I didn't know it existed until just recently, and we weren't using it. And it didn't seem necessary. And what it does is it's really pretty basic, like any freestanding sign has to have conditional use permit. And we were not requiring that. So this is, again, all handled in Chapter 23, and signs are allowed. So we took it out. Staff finds that it meets the criteria for changing an ordinance based on the comprehensive plan and code. And these are your potential motions. I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you.
You remember what needed to be said, so get with it.
There's a public hearing, so we will open the floor for any public testimony. Seeing none.
No one has signed up for public comment.
All right.
I thought Daniel just raised his hand.
Yeah, Daniel.
Seeing none.
He's like,
He's back there playing solitaire. So.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gardner and a second by Miller to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Public hearing is closed.
Mr. Chair, I move to recommend approval of the code changes as stated on the screen with the proposed findings and the additional condition that staff work with legal to address the changes to the conditional use revisions to match with those which were noted in the discussion by Christy Watkins.
Second.
Is that good?
That was perfect.
Called her out.
Motion by Commissioner Gardner, second by Miller to recommend approval of the code changes with the additional condition. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Peggy?
And we need a motion to adjourn unless you have something before that.
Well, I would like to say this publicly.
Oh, good.
Did you work on this with 12 other people or just one or two people or?
Commissioner Kehoe, we as a department take recommendations from council and things that we hear during public hearings and things that are unclear to us while we're trying to interpret code. And we have code writing sessions with about eight or nine people.
I think all of you deserve a raise.
It's gotta be.
Yeah, really, I would have been asleep.
There are bagels and donuts involved.
Been there.
Okay, Peggy.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Selman and a second by Morgan to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor say aye.